Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. Did Queen Amelia de Orleans disappear without a trace? His mysterious disappearance in the 19th century remains an enigma. Discover the truth behind this intriguing mystery. Subscribe and activate the bell so as not to miss anything. Imagine the opulence of the French court, dazzling dances, elegance. And in the midst of all that brightness, a queen that disappears. Amelia de Orleans, princess of royalty, wife of King Louis Philippe, one day simply fades without a trace, without note, without explanation. Only a vacuum where there was an important figure in European public life. What happened? That is the question that has resonated over the years, a question that still does not answer. His disappearance was not a simple event. It was a mystery that wrapped throughout Europe. Speculations began immediately. A kidnapping? A secret escape for love? A palatial plot? Each theory, as intriguing as the previous one, only fed fascination and confusion around its case. The lack of clues caused the enigma to become even more irresistible, feeding the interest of historians and mystery fans for generations. You, like me, will ask, what really happened to Amelia? Why did you decide to disappear without a trace? Is there a hidden truth, a secret that history has kept jealously saved? The mystery persists, challenging any attempt for definitive resolution. In this video, we will explore the most fascinating theories, to analyze the existing evidence and to immerse ourselves in the life of this enigmatic queen, trying to unravel the mystery of his disappearance. But before his mysterious disappearance, who was really Amelia? He was born within a real family, surrounded by unimaginable luxuries to most. Imposing palaces, raised at your service, an exquisite education, everything seemed perfect on the surface. However, behind that privileged facade, secrets were hidden that even today are disconcerting. His childhood, although apparently idyllic, was marked by a protocol rigidity that suffocated her. The label lessons, the rigid courts of the court, the constant pressure to maintain an impeccable image, all this contributed to creating a young princess with a complex personality, full of contradictions. It is said that Amelia possessed a free spirit, even rebel, that clashed with the expectations of the rigid society of the time, that he preferred the book of books to lavish parties, and felt a fascination with art and culture that contrasted with the superficiality that surrounded her. Was this rebellion that led her to make such unexpected decisions? But his palatial life was not exempt from shadows. The Orleans family, although it held power and wealth, was a hotbed of intrigues and scandals. You will wonder, what kind of secrets hid behind the walls of their sumptuous palaces? Rivalries between brothers, disputes for inheritance and prohibited romances were the bread of each day. The political ambitions of some members collided frontally with the interests of others, creating a constant tension climate. Remember that power in the French court was a dangerous game, where each movement could have devastating consequences. The alliances were forged and broken with the same ease with which tea was served in a sunny afternoon. Love scandals and rumors of infidelities splashed the public image of the family, staining their reputation. Amelia, growing in this environment, was inevitably wrapped in the tangle of secrets and lies that defined life in court. It was a world of appearances, where the truth was hidden behind a luxury mask and refinement. But returning to Amelia, his education was as rigorous as that of any heiress to the throne. Imagine classes of history, geography, languages French, English, German, probably even Italian, and of course courtesan labeled that he learned to move with grace, to talk with the nobility, to dominate the art of silent diplomacy, so crucial in the intricate networks of European power. From an early age, he was instilled in the importance of his position, the need to maintain composure and control, even given the greatest adversities. In addition to academic subjects, their training included music, painting, and dance, activities considered essential for a princess. It was not just to decorate his free time, but to refine his intelligence, his taste, and his ability to shine in society. Think of the hours dedicated to perfecting his writing, his calligraphy, the elegance of his bearing, every carefully molded detail to turn it into the perfect image of a queen. Prosody / speak. Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. The court was its classroom, and each interaction a lesson. He watched the courtiers, learning to decipher their intentions, to navigate the complexities of alliances and rivalries. The parties, the dances, the official ceremonies, everything contributed to their political education, teaching him the subtle dance of power, the importance of appearances, and the need to maintain an impeccable image. In that competitive environment, he had to learn to protect himself, to be cunning, to manage with intelligence and discretion. But that privileged life was truncated too soon. Imagine a little Amelia, surrounded by luxuries, but with a constant shadow. Her mother's premature death dealt a brutal blow to such a small girl, who surely deeply marked her personality and worldview. Remember that, at that time, infant mortality was high and the loss of a parent was something relatively common, but that does not decrease the impact of tragedy in its tender age. His mother's absence left a difficult vacuum to fill. Think about the lack of that maternal figure, in the fragility he had to feel when losing the person who loved her and protected unconditionally. That wound became an integral part of his childhood, modeling his future actions and decisions. Despite the opulence that surrounded her, sadness and loneliness surely inhabited in her heart. Add to that pain the pressure of being a princess, to carry on your shoulders the responsibility of a real family. Imagine the expectations that weighed on her, the need to behave with a composure that, at her age, should be overwhelming and almost inhuman. The tragedy of maternal loss, combined with the pressures of her status, made her a young woman marked by sadness and loneliness, despite her privileged position. A brutal blow to a girl, yes, but life, even in royalty, continues its course. The age in which marriage became an inevitable theme came. For you, Amelia, Princess of Orléans, the future was presented as an intricate dance of political alliances and possible loves. The first suitors approached, young princes and nobles throughout Europe, each with their own interests and ambitions. Remember those first encounters, those dances in palaces illuminated by candelabra, where music and conversation were a curtain after which the true negotiations were woven. Each smile, every look, every carefully chosen word, was all part of a complex game, where love mixed with the political strategy. How much of genuine were there in those attention? How much was simple calculation? You, Amelia, were at the center of a real chessboard. Each suitor represented a piece with a different strategic value. A marriage could strengthen alliances, ensure territories, or simply consolidate the power of the Orléans family. But what happened to your own wishes? Did you have any voice in this game of power, or would you simply be one more piece on the board? So there was Amelia, with the heavy crown of real expectation by pressing on their young shoulders. The proposal came, a convenient marriage, a strategic political union to consolidate alliances and ensure the future of the dynasty. It was not a fairy tale, nor a passionate romance, but a treaty signed with invisible ink, a contract sealed with a cold kiss. The suitor, a prince of a neighboring kingdom, a man who barely knew nothing beyond his title and lineage. Love. That was a luxury that royalty could be affected only on rare occasions, and where appropriate it was a concept as distant as the moon. Her future, her life, was being decided by others on a chessboard where she was just one more piece. The weight of tradition, social pressure, the obligation to maintain the established order, all of that cindied over it. His own opinion, his wishes, his dreams, seemed insignificant to the magnitude of the decisions made in his name. It was a sacrifice that was requested, a duty that he had to fulfill, a sacrifice for the good of the kingdom, although at the expense of his own happiness. So, you imagine gala dances in gigantic halls, with gleaming candlesticks and music that made you feel like a dream. Silk dresses, jewels that flash, but behind that brightness, a strict protocol dictated each movement. Every word, that a simple error could be a scandal in court. Each look, each gesture, observed under the relentless scrutiny of the nobility. The label, language, music lessons, hours and hours dedicated to the formation of a princess, to mold you to be the perfect wife, the ideal queen. They taught you to control each emotion, to maintain your composure in any situation. Freedom was a luxury that you could not afford. Your life was governed by an inflexible schedule, every minute dedicated to a specific task, without margin for spontaneity. Prosody / speak. Speak, prosody rate equals 90%. But even within that golden cage, there were moments of loneliness, reflection. The walls of the palace, although adorned with luxury, could be oppressive. Despite the brightness, opulence, Life in court was a golden prison, where luxury mixed with the rigidity of the protocol, and personal freedom was a distant dream. And you, Amelia, you felt more than anyone. But that brightness blinded. Below the surface, the court was a hotbed of intrigues. Amelia, with her natural charm, won some sincere friendships, women who saw in her an ally against constant gossip and rivalries. But others looked at her with envy, suspicious of her beauty and the attention she received from the king. The rivalry with other ladies of the court was palpable. Some, of powerful and anxious families of influence, saw in Amelia a threat to their position. His poisoned whispers, his accusing looks, became a constant threat in the life of the young princess. Not all were declared enemies, but distrust was the daily bread. And then there were the enemies, characters with real power, who saw a stone in Amelia on their way. Perhaps conspiracies, perhaps only rumors, but the shadow of suspicion constantly cinders on it, feeding a climate of tension and distrust that permeated to the air that breathed. But those alliances were not enough to silence the whispers that in the golden halls, between the tintinnio of drinks and the chamber music. There was talk of Amelia. Some saw her as a lovely, even mysterious woman. Others, with more suspicion, commented on their influence, their proximity to certain influential characters. It was said that he had a beauty that hypnotized, an intelligence that intimidated, and a secret that wrapped her like a fine fog. The first indications of mystery began subtly at a missing jewel, a letter found in an unexpected place, an interrupted conversation. Small details that seemed insignificant, but united, began to weave a network of suspicions. Amelia's absence in some social events, justified with vague excuses, fed speculation. Was he sick? Had he fled? Or had anything more sinister? You, observer of this story, begin to feel the tension. The court, before a place of splendor and superficiality, is now transformed into a scenario of hidden secrets and disturbing silences. The conversations in a low voice, the furtive looks, the complicit silence, everything contributed to feed the intrigue that surrounded Amelia. What hid after that mask of elegance and charm? The answer still remains hidden. But the whispers became shouting. Amelia's disappearance was not another secret of the court. One day simply faded his empty room, his intact belongings, just a disturbing silence that resonated in the palace. The news reached the ears of the king, who initially minimized the event, attributing it to a whim of the princess. But the insistence of the nobility and the growing public discomfort forced the monarch to act. A discreet investigation began, headed by the police prefect, a man tanned for years of dealing with the low funds of Paris. His men began to track Amelia's movements in the weeks before his disappearance. Interviews with servants, guards, and some of its closest acquaintances resulted in a contradictory information torrent, rumors and speculations that only deepened the enigma. Each track seemed to take a dead end. Some spoke of a secret lover, others of a premeditated flight to escape a concerted marriage. The truth, however, remained hidden after a mystery curtain. The investigation extended as a stain of ink, staining the reputation of the court and further feeding the rumors. You, as a spectator, are now in the heart of this mystery. What do you think it really happened? A ghost carriage, some say. A hooded figure seen from afar, according to others. You wonder what's true in these stories? Contradictory testimonies flood the court. Amelia in a convent, flight with a lover, even the possibility of a kidnapping. But the evidence is inconsistent, the statements vague. Some say they have seen it in a small nearby villa, buying bread. Others in a port, embarking on a ship towards America. A fisherman claims to have recognized her at sea, aboard a candle ship, with her eyes lost on the horizon. A nun from the Santa Clara convent sweats that a woman with her description, but with her face hidden by a veil, sought refuge there for a few days. But none of these tracks leads to a definitive answer. The Queen confusion. Are these real apparitions or product of imagination and despair? Prosody. Speak. Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. The lack of physical evidence. The inconsistency of the testimonies, the absence of a clear mobile, everything contributes to the mystery. Every detail becomes a piece of a puzzle that seems impossible to assemble. And you, while you enter this labyrinth of contradictory information, ask yourself, where is Amelia? What really happened to the queen who disappeared without a trace? You, determined to unravel the mystery, go into the royal palace. His runners, silent and dusty, seemed to whisper secrets. Each room, a new enigma. You observe the walls, looking for some unusual detail, a mark, an inscription that gives you a clue about the whereabouts of Amélie. The weight of history envelopes you. The opulence of the past contrasts with the disturbing feeling of vacuum that reigns now. You stop at Amélie's bedroom. The bed is undone, as if I had left it in a hurry, on the nightstand. A book open to a page marked with a delicate bouquet of dried flowers, a hidden message? Each object, every detail, tells you about an interrupted life, of a precipitous game. Amélie's absence is felt in every corner of the room. In the study, you discover an old trunk, key. His dark wood, worn by time, jealously keeps his secrets. You try to open it, but it is strongly assured. What does it contain inside? A letter, a newspaper, an object that can reveal the queen's fate. The answer is hidden after the lock, after the mystery that the trunk keeps. The walls of the palace seemed to remain silent, but you knew that the story did not tell itself. You needed the puzzle pieces that only official research could offer. You started looking for documents, any trace of the investigation after Amélie's disappearance. The archives, guarded with heat, seemed to resist revealing their secrets. But you, stubborn, you kept looking. You found a dusty folder, full of official reports, letters, and testimonies. The reports were confused, full of contradictions. Some hinted at possible negligence on the part of the royal guard, their lack of surveillance in the palace. Others talked about superficial investigation, closed too soon without clarifying anything. Had they hid something? The question resonated in your mind, getting stronger. Was it negligence, or something more sinister? Among the yellowish pages, you found a testimony that caught your attention that a palace's maid described having seen Amélie discussing heatedly with a mysterious man, shortly before his disappearance. The description was vague, but the possibility of a conspiracy gained strength. Was there anyone who would like to silence Amélie? Because the official reports pointed to several suspects. Your research led you to Amélie's family. His own brother, Luis, a man with a murky reputation and considerable game debts, was interrogated. Could I have eliminated her to inherit her fortune? The letters found in their desk showed a growing economic despair, which only feeds suspicions. Then there were his friends, the high Parisian society, people with hidden secrets after lovely smiles. A countess, known for his clandestine romances and his game debts, was investigated. A jealous lover? A conflict for an inheritance? The possibilities multiplied, each more murky than the previous one. The elegant facade of the aristocracy began to crumble before your eyes. But there was more. The enemies. Amélie had an enmity of years with the family of a rival politician, an act of political revenge. The palatial intrigues were a maze of secrets and grudges, and Amélie's disappearance seemed to be the end point of a long conflict chain. Or was it just a coincidence? You should decide. But Luis was not the only one with motifs. Amélie had a secret lover, an influential aristocrat according to some rumors. Could this clandestine romance have led to your disappearance? Imagine the social pressure of the time, the scandal that would be a relationship outside of marriage. Did he fled with his lover to escape the consequences? Or was this romance the cause of his disappearance? Money also plays a crucial role. Amélie possessed considerable fortune. Was it kidnapped by your money? Perhaps someone coveted his inheritance, planning his disappearance to seize his assets. Think of his brother's debts. Could he have been involved in a plan to obtain access to Amélie's fortune? And finally, power. Amélie belonged to a family with great influence in the court. Was it possible that his disappearance was related to any political game? Was it eliminated to silence it, or for someone else to ascend in power? In 19th century Europe, politics was full of intrigues and conspiracies. Was Amélie a victim of these machinations? Prosody, speak. Speak? Prosody rate equals 90%. But what if the lover was not the key? Imagine a palatial conspiracy, a network of intrigues woven in the shadows of the court. Someone powerful, perhaps even someone from the royal family itself, could have ordered the kidnapping of Amélie. His disappearance could have served hidden interests, a strategy to silence an uncomfortable woman, too independent or with compromising information. Think of possible motivations. A disputed heritage, a scandal that threatened to shake the foundations of the monarchy, or perhaps a simple matter of power. Amelia, with her strong character and intelligence, could have been perceived as a threat by those who clung to status quo. Would anyone have bold enough to order their disappearance? The kidnapping theory opens a range of possibilities. It could have been a meticulously orchestrated plan, with the participation of multiple people, or perhaps the work of a single individual with sufficient power and influence. Regardless of the conspiracy scale, the question persists: who would benefit from Amelia's disappearance? And, more importantly, who had the resources and audacity to carry out such a risky plan? But what if Amelia was not a victim, but the architect of his own disappearance? Imagine a young princess, suffocated by the rigid, courteous label, yearning for freedom. A meticulously planned escape, a new, carefully built identity away from the relentless scrutiny of the court. Do you dare to consider that Amelia, tired of oppression, chose a different path, a path to anonymous happiness? Think about the possibility of a network of secret allies, people willing to help her erase her past and start over. A clandestine trip, a new life in a distant country, where no one recognized it, where it could simply be Amelia. Would this be the best-saved secret of the missing queen? Perhaps he resigned from his title, his position, to everything that represented his previous life, for a quiet, anonymous life. A life where the weight of the crown will not overwhelm it, where the palatial intrigues were a distant memory. Can you imagine such a life for her? A life far from opulence and drama, a simple and full life? But there is another possibility, much more bleak. Imagine the unbearable pressure of the court, the weight of expectations, loneliness in the middle of luxury. What would happen if, after years of containment, Amelia's sadness became unbearable despair? Think of a young princess, bright but fragile, trapped in a golden cage, without escape in sight. The suicide theory raises a silent tragedy, a shout drowned in the walls of a palace. The royal family, concerned about the scandal, could have uncovered the truth, presenting a mysterious disappearance to protect their image. A real suicide would stain the honor of the crown, right? The absence of suicide notes or clear indications does not necessarily mean that it did not happen. Silence, in this case, could be the most heartbreaking cry. Perhaps the social pressure and the weight of tradition were too much for her. Amelia, a woman advanced to her time, may not find her place in such a rigid and superficial society. The burden of his own existence, the impossibility of expressing himself freely, could have taken her to make a desperate decision, a decision that history has tried to hide under the veil of mystery. After the disappearance of Amelia, the search for answers focused on his belongings. Would you have left any hidden message? You imagine checking each drawer, every trunk, every corner of its opulent apartment. The letters, thousands of them, written throughout their lives, became the main focus of attention. But most were missing. A mystery within the mystery. The few letters that survived the passage of time were written in elegant calligraphy, but their content was cryptic. Some phrases seemed written in code, others simply lacked meaning. Would these false clues or encrypted messages that hid the truth about their disappearance? You are immersed in the exciting, but frustrating, attempt to decipher its meaning. Research takes you to experts in historical cryptography, to dusty libraries where the secrets of the past are kept. Each track, however minimal, brings you a little closer to the truth, but also enters you in a maze of deceptions and contradictions. Will you unravel the hidden mysteries in those letters? Or will the truth remain an enigma? But true hope came with the discovery of their newspapers. They were not the official newspapers, full of social events and gossip of the court, but some hidden notebooks, tied with a worn loop. Its pages, yellowish for the time, seemed to save deeper secrets than the disappearance itself. You imagine each of those books, feeling the weight of the story between your hands, every page a whisper of the past. /prosody, /speak. Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. In them, Amelia not only reported their intimacies, but also pointed secret encounters, veiled names after cryptic initials, and places that only a connoisseur of the court could decipher. There were references to hidden debts, to a possible lover. Was his disappearance related to these clandestine meetings? Each word immerses you more in the mystery, right? A name appeared repeatedly. Lord Ashworth. A powerful man, with connections in the darkest circles of the court. Was it the one who helped her disappear, or forced her to do it? subsequent entries became increasingly fragmentary, as if Amelia had written hurriedly, with the feeling of being observed. Would this be the key to solving the enigma of your disappearance? The tension grows with each new revelation. An frayed silk thread, almost invisible, held the newspapers upon unleashing. With great care, small, delicate objects appeared. A gold brooch with a worn pearl, a lock of blonde hair intertwined with a blue ribbon, and a small silver key, oxidized by time. Each piece, a fragment of Amelia's life, a track that may reveal its destiny. The brooch, examined with a magnifying glass, revealed a small, almost illegible inscription. The experts managed to decipher it. A monogram, and some initials that could belong to someone from their intimate circle. A lover? An enemy? The key, meanwhile, was tested in several old chests and trunks, but without success. Its mystery remains. The strand of hair, although fragile, kept its color. DNA analysis could reveal more information, but time and degradation could have compromised the sample. However, the blue ribbon, despite its deterioration, maintained its vibrant color, an indication of a possible escape route. A beautiful memory? That lock, ash blonde, belonged to Amelia. I confirmed it. But who kept it? The butler, Jean-Pierre, said he had last seen her in the garden, collecting flowers. His testimony, however, contradicted that of the cook, Mademoiselle Dubois, who swears that saw Amelia climb to a black carriage that afternoon. 2 stories. 2 completely different scenarios. What is the truth? Mademoiselle Dubois, a woman of few words and penetrating look, described the carriage with amazing details. The shield at the door, the shape of the horses, details that, if true, could lead us to the identity of the driver and its possible involvement in the disappearance. But why would Jean-Pierre lie? Or maybe Dubois hid something else. A third witness, the gardener, a taciturn and few words, only confirmed to have seen Amelia that afternoon, but did not contribute relevant details. His silence, however, is as eloquent as any statement. What really did you see? What was hiding? The contradiction in the testimonies creates a maze of possibilities, each more disconcerting than the previous one. But there is something that left me with the fly behind the ear. The inconsistency in the testimonies. Jean-Pierre, the butler, saw her in the garden, right? But the maid, Antoinette, swore to have seen her in the library. Checking some papers. 2 places so different at the same time. It is impossible. Lie, oblivion, or something more sinister is at stake. In addition, the gardener, a man of few words named Gustave, mentioned having heard a heated discussion from the greenhouse that afternoon, a discussion between Amelia and who? He did not specify it. His statement is vague, but significant. What kind of discussion could cause the disappearance of a queen? Police, on the other hand, limited themselves to registering the castle, but its reports are incomplete. Crucial information is missing. Some documents seem to have disappeared, others are damaged, and the notes of the chief inspector are confusing, contradictory. Was it negligence, or did someone erase the clues on purpose? But what role did the church play in all this? Antoinette, the maid, mentioned a visit by Father Michel, the Queen's confessor, just before her disappearance. He was an influential figure, close to the royal family, and his testimony could be crucial. However, his statements were vague, even evasive, just saying that Amelia was going through a spiritual crisis, nothing more. Some rumors pointed to a possible conspiracy within the church itself. It was said that Amelia had access to compromising information for some clergy members, secrets that could have put it in danger. Did they try to silence her? The idea is disturbing, but we cannot rule it out. Official investigation, controlled by the government itself, practically ignored this aspect. Prosody? Speak. Speak. The prosody rate equals 90%. The silence of the church, its reluctance to fully collaborate with the investigation, only feeds the suspicions. Were they complicit, covering up something to protect your image? Or were they simply passive observers, unable or little willing to intervene in such a delicate matter that involved royalty? The answer, like so many others in this mystery, remains elusive. But imagine the social pressure of the time. Silence was a shield, a way to protect the reputation of the royal family. A scandal like the disappearance of a queen, without explanation, could destabilize the entire kingdom. The court, the nobility, even the flat people were subject to a network of silences and whispers, where the truth became a dangerous luxury. Think about the consequences for anyone who dared to speak. The loss of social status, ostracism, even jail. The pressure to remain silent was immense, an invisible network that kept society in a state of awkward stillness. Amelia's disappearance was not just a mystery, it was a latent threat to social stability. The Church, with its omnipresent influence, also contributed to this silence. Father Michel, as the Queen's confessor, could have been a custodian of secrets, forced by the oath of confidentiality, but also for social pressure to maintain order and stability. Silence, in this case, became an instrument of social control. But what happens if I tell you that today, with the right tools, we can go beyond speculation? Imagine the possibility of analyzing bone remains with DNA techniques, looking for traces that could reveal their identity or even the cause of his death. Technology allows us to rebuild faces from skulls, offering a more precise image of how Amélie was. New research could unravel the mystery. Think about the possibility of analyzing old documents with digital image techniques. We could find watermarks, hidden stamps, or even traces of invisible ink that could reveal clues about their last movements. Even the correspondence of the time, analyzed with specialized software, could reveal hidden secrets between lines. Technology offers us a new perspective about the past. And not just that. Geolocation and analysis of old maps can help us rebuild their possible travel routes. We could analyze the geological information of the time to better understand land conditions and the possibilities of survival in different places. Imagine tracking your steps a century and a half later, thanks to modern technology. The mystery becomes a technological puzzle. Well, imagine this. Recently, in the National Archives of France, a series of unpublished letters have been discovered. Letters written by Amélie herself and others aimed at her, who shed a new light on her last days. These are personal correspondence, financial notes, even a newspaper, fragmented but fascinating, which seems to reveal a network of unexpected contacts and a possible motivation for its flight, far removed from romantic speculations that have been maintained for decades. Details that could completely change what you thought were to know. Among the documents, there is a particularly intriguing letter addressed to a banker from London. He mentions an important sum of money, a secret transaction that has not been able to track so far. Could this be the key to understanding your disappearance? Was Amélie fleeing something or someone? The new investigations focus on deciphering the code of this transaction, looking for possible clues that can point to a specific destination, a hidden identity, or even a much larger conspiracy than was initially believed. But there is more. Another letter, written by Amélie days before his disappearance, mentions a secret encounter in a small villa near the French coast. The name of the town is written in code, but cryptography experts believe they are close to deciphering it. If we get it, we could have the exact location of the last place where Amélie was seen, which would allow us to focus our search on a much more restricted area and, perhaps, find definitive answers. Think about what this implies. Well, those letters, apparently insignificant, have opened a new route of research. Imagine the emotion of historians to discover that some of the letters retain DNA remains. Thanks to the forensic analysis techniques, this DNA can be compared with that of possible descendants of Amélie, opening the possibility of confirming their identity or even discovering its final destination. But the thing doesn't stay there. Forensic analysis goes beyond DNA. Ink marks, the type of paper are studied, even the traces of stamps and lacquer. Every detail, carefully analyzed, can contribute one more piece to the puzzle of Amélie's disappearance. It is like rebuilding a puzzle from the crumbs of a distant past. Prosody, speak. Speak, prosody rate equals 90%. Think about the possibility of finding venom traces on paper, or even fabric fibers that can identify the clothes that Amélie wore. Technology allows us to see the invisible, rebuild the lost, and approach the truth in a way that was previously unthinkable. Each scientific advance brings us a little more to solve this ancient enigma. So, what can we learn from similar cases? Think of the mysterious disappearance of the missing Princess of Lamballe during the French Revolution. Or the case of Lord Lucan, who vanished at night after a murder. What do these enigmas have in common with Amélie's? The lack of a body, the suspicion of dirty game, and the presence of a network of powerful contacts that could have helped hide the truth. Those patterns, those threads that are intertwined, lead us to investigate beyond the documents. Analyzing those cases, we discover that often the lack of physical evidence greatly hinders research. The absence of a body allows speculation and conspiracy theories to flourish, feeding the legend, as in the case of Amelia. But we also learn that sometimes the silence of some witnesses or the destruction of evidence can be more revealing than the evidence itself. Sometimes, what is not said is as important as what is said. Remember the case of Agatha Christie, the famous writer who disappeared for 11 days. His disappearance, although it was finally resolved, showed the ease with which someone can disappear, even a public figure. This makes us question the complexity of the investigation in the case of Amelia, and the possibility that, in the midst of chaos and the intrigue of the 19th century, its disappearance was simpler than we imagine, or deliberately orchestrated. But let's go back to Amelia. The new investigations focus on a possible secret trip. Imagine Amelia, fleeing from an awkward situation in court, perhaps a scandal that threatened his reputation, decides to voluntarily disappear. Some historians raise the possibility of carefully orchestrated escape, with the help of a lover or a confidant, towards a new life away from public scrutiny. Can you imagine the audacity of such a plan at that time? Another hypothesis, more radical, suggests a possible kidnapping. Think about the possibility that a powerful enemy, someone with much to lose if Amelia revealed a secret, forced her to disappear. This theory, although dark, considers the possibility of a carefully planned plot to silence the princess. Who could have had such a powerful reason? Finally, the possibility of accidental death, followed by a deliberate concealment of the body, cannot be ruled out. An accident, a sudden disease. The time was dangerous and investigations were not as thorough as today. If something like that had happened, who would have been in charge of hiding the truth? And why? So where could Amelia be buried? The hypothesis of a secret burial points to several locations. Think of the places she had easy access, but at the same time they could maintain their disappearance secret. Perhaps a family cemetery, section and little visited, in some property of the Orléans family. Imagine a tomb without a name, discreet, hoping to be discovered. Another possibility, more risky, is that it is buried in an unsecured place. An unknown land, far from indiscreet looks, perhaps in a rural property belonging to an ally. An exhaustive analysis of the properties of the time would be needed, seeking records of hidden burials or inconsistencies in property documents. The possibility of a funeral in a convent or monastery has also been considered. At that time, some women of the nobility, for different reasons, opted for a religious life in seclusion. Let's imagine Amelia looking for refuge, perhaps under a false name, and dying there, with a discreet burial within the walls of the convent. Finally, we cannot rule out the possibility that your body has never been found. Perhaps, in his escape, he suffered an accident or an illness that snatched his life in a remote place, without anyone being able to identify it. This scenario leaves the door open to an even deeper mystery. But Amelia's disappearance is not only a mystery, but also a vacuum in history. Think about the impact that his absence had in the French court, in the lives of his relatives, and in the public perception of the monarchy. How did your mysterious departure affect international relations? Imagine the speculations that were woven, feeding rumors and theories that last until today. His legacy, instead of being celebrated, was obscured by the mystery. How would Amelia be remembered if he had lived a full and public life? Would he have written about his intelligence, his achievements, or his ideas? His disappearance turned her into an enigmatic figure, leaving a hole in the historical narrative that many try to fill. Prosody. Speak. Speak, the prosody rate equals 90%, perhaps, without its disappearance, the history of the French monarchy of the 19th century would be different. Imagine the impact that its presence or its absence had in political decisions, in alliances and on the course of the nation. Its history became a footnote, a mystery that eclipsed any possible legacy that it could have left. But what really happened to Amelia? Was it a kidnapping, a premeditated escape, or something much darker? That is the question that has intrigued historians and fans for centuries. The lack of conclusive evidence feeds the most crazy theories, from a secret romance to a political plot of unimaginable proportions. You, as a spectator, are left with the feeling that there are missing pieces in this historical puzzle. If he fled, where did he? With who? There are no records of his presence nowhere after his disappearance. No letter, no newspaper, no clue that allows us to follow your trace. The absence of any type of communication is, in itself, a key piece of mystery, an absence that shouts in the silence of history. And if it was a kidnapping, who kidnapped her and why? Was it an act of revenge, an attempt to extortion, or something more sinister? The lack of a clear mobile, the absence of rescue demands, all this contributes to the confusion and the multitude of theories that, to this day, remain without any response. It is a mystery that resists being deciphered. So, what do you fit after investigating Amelia's disappearance? A void. A deep sense of mystery that resists any attempt of definitive explanation. Despite the theories, speculations, and investigations, the truth is still Dodge, a ghost that escapes between the fingers. Perhaps, the true fascination of Amelia's case lies precisely in that uncertainty. In the impossibility of closing the circle, of finding an answer that gives us a sense of closing. It is an enigma that challenges certainties, which reminds us of the fragility of the history and persistence of secrets. Remember that history, sometimes, does not give us the answers we are looking for. The disappearance of Amélie de Orléans, more than a simple historical anecdote, becomes a reflection of human complexity. The ability to hide secrets and the persistence of mystery. It is an enigma that will continue to resonate over time, inviting us to question what we think we know. But, what do you think? After everything we have seen, what is your theory about Amelia's disappearance? Do you think he fled for love, escaping from an oppressive life in court? Was it a kidnapping, perhaps orchestrated by a powerful enemy? Or anything much more sinister, a hidden secret in the shadows of the high European society of the 19th century? Maybe Amelia found a tragic end, an accident or undercover murder. Think about the details, the clues that we have analyzed. What element do you think most suspicious? What character generates more distrust? Share your ideas, your own research, and comments. Remember that each hypothesis, however crazy it may seem, can shed light on this enigma. There are no easy answers, but your perspective is crucial. What details make you doubt the official versions? What makes you think something else happened? Dare to participate, your opinion matters. And now, a moment to thank everyone who made this video possible. First, to you, for your interest in the history of Amélie de Orléans. Without your curiosity, this trip through time would not make sense. I also want to thank the researchers and authors who dedicated years to unraveling this mystery. Their works have been the basis of this research. A special thanks to the historical archives of France and Spain, which opened their doors to offer access to crucial documents. His collaboration was fundamental to rebuild the chronology of the facts and reveal some details so far unknown. I cannot forget my editing and production team, who worked tirelessly to shape this story. His talent and dedication have been essential for you to enjoy this video. Thanks to his work, Amelia's story comes alive in a visually attractive way. Last but not least, thanks to you for watching this video until the end. I hope you enjoyed the route and that this mystery has captivated you as much as it. Remember to subscribe to not miss more stories like this. Until next. But Amelia's story is not unique. In the world of royalty, intrigue and mystery are as common as crowns. Have you ever wondered what really happened with the missing Princess Anastasia Romanov? Or what secrets keep the life of the enigmatic Queen Juana I of Castilla? Prepare, because in our next video we will explore other real mysteries that will leave you breathless. /prosody, /speak. Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. We will talk about inexplicable disappearances, hidden family secrets for centuries, and conspiracies that marked the fate of some of the most important characters in history. Characters that, like Amelia, left an enigma behind them that continues to captivate researchers and history fans. I assure you that these stories are as fascinating as Amelia's, perhaps even more shocking. So subscribe to not miss our next video, where we will unravel other mysteries that will make you question everything you thought about knowing about the history of European monarchies. Do not miss it. It will be an unforgettable adventure. I hope you enjoyed Amelia's story. If you liked it, give like and subscribe to more historical mysteries. What do you think about your disappearance? Leave it in the comments. /prosody, /speak.